Casey Richards back with you for another edition of Quarantine Conversations with the CDGA. And checking in with us today, Pekin, Illinois native D.A. Points, a longtime stalwart on the PGA Tour, currently stationed in Florida during all this. D.A., how is everything going for you down there?
Yeah, we're hanging in. It's obviously a tough time for everybody across the world. And, we're certainly trying to do our part to stay in. And, if we have to go out, we wear masks. And, we're super grateful for all the people that are putting themselves out there to, try to help, get this pandemic under control and get us hopefully back to normal.
Definitely. So, I mean, it's been over a month now since, the PGA Tour season and really everything throughout the world was kind of put on hold. How was the season going for you up to this point, and what are your thoughts on kind of the whole process that went into pausing the season and, the various news that's come out about how it looks like golf may be one of the first sports back in the coming months?
Yeah. My season wasn't going very well. I'm coming off, I had surgery on my neck May 2nd, so coming up almost a year ago. And I've been playing under what they call as a major medical exemption, where I have full status on tour and I have a certain amount of starts to try to use to get my card locked up back in those starts. And it's tough because it's a different situation than I've been in before, where it's like, I'm trying to pick and choose, and I play 1 week and then don't play for a couple weeks and play 1 week. It's been very difficult to get much of a rhythm. And I was actually kind of, before we ended, I was kind of planning to just go ahead and just try to play a bunch of weeks in a row and try to find some kind of rhythm, because my game itself wasn't all that bad. I mean, my short game was good. My long game was struggling a little bit, but I was kind of turning the corner on that. And then all of a sudden, boom, shut it down. And, I've been playing professional golf for over 20 years. And, when you do a job, and I love golf and I love practicing and playing and competing at golf, but when you've been doing it for over 20 years, you're kind of used to having something to look forward to, or something to prepare for, or to try to get up for, to be ready to be, all right, I'm on this date, I'm going to show up and I'm going to try to win this golf tournament. And now the fact that we just don't have any idea when that is, it's really hard I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way, where we're all kind of like, man, yes, we want to practice and yes, we want to be prepared, but it's really hard to stay diligently regimented and doing the stuff you need to do to compete at the highest level when you don't know when you're going to compete again. And then also you got to think, well, how much energy do I want to expend during this shutdown? Because if you grind really hard, and it just keeps prolonging, by the time you do get to come back, you could maybe not be as fresh as you'd like to be. So we're all kind of trying to play that game, I think, of being ready, being kind of staying somewhat sharp, but trying to find the time to really get ready.
Absolutely. I'm sure, like you said, nothing like you've experienced in your professional golf life, which, as you alluded to, dates back, more than 20 years. But before that, you were on the amateur golf circuit, both in the local level across the state of Illinois and on a national level, which we'll get to in a second. But growing up in Pekin, Illinois, playing at Pekin Country Club, living on Pekin Country Club, if I'm not mistaken, you won 3 Illinois State amateur titles, 1995, 1998, and 1999. You're one of only 2 people who has won 3 titles since it became a stroke play event in the 60s. So certainly in rare air there. When you reflect upon those 3 victories and really that stage in your golf career, what stands out to you the most?
Gosh, man, probably immediately would maybe be my last one. It was up north, I think at Glen Eagles or Glen. It was up north I'm trying to blank right now on the course, but I know that the third round, I had 2 solid kind of opening rounds, and then I faltered a little bit in my third round. And the way we do it, I'm not sure if it's still that way, but you played 18 and 18, then you cut and you play 36 on the final day. And I remember I had my girlfriend caddying for me, she didn't weigh more than 100 pounds, and she was out there trying to hoof it up and down the mountain that we were playing on the side of up in, I think it was outside Galena maybe. And I shot 75, I think 74, 75 third round. And then I came back with a 7 under 65 and put it away. But it was, it was cool. Like the Illinois State Amateur meant a lot to me. When I won my first one at Illini Country Club, I just, it was kind of one of those things I'd never really even thought about, oh, I'm going to win this event. Like I just kind of showed up and I was playing. And then I think I shot back-to-back 68s on the 36 hole day. And all of a sudden they were handing me the trophy, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that victory in 1999. You're right in Galena at Eagle Ridge, and
Eagle Ridge.
Looking back at the archives, Kevin Streelman finished second that year. So kind of interesting that really two of the main PGA Tour players these days from the state of Illinois, were 1-2 that year. What's your relationship like with Kevin? And you grew up in different parts of the state, but still two Illinois natives who have made it on tour.
Yeah, Streels and I would say we're good friends. We're not close to where we like call each other all the time kind of thing. But whenever we, see each other in the lunchroom, we'll sit down. We've done countless pro-ams together. We'll ride on a bus and, ride to, maybe the Rockford Pro-Am or some other different pro-ams around the country. And, we've played a lot of golf together over the years. Our families are in relatively similar stages. My kids are a little bit older, I think, than his kids, but we've all kind of gone through the same stuff of coming up through the web or nationwide, and then establishing ourselves on tour and having a win or two, and then also now moving on to having a family and tackling that part of our life.
Absolutely. So, mentioned earlier that while you were winning your Illinois State Amateur titles, you were also competing on the national circuit. In 1996, you advanced to the quarterfinals of the U.S. Amateur, only to come up against the individual who would go on to win the event, Tiger Woods. So what do you recall about that event and going up against, somebody who has obviously turned out to be one of the greatest to ever play?
Yeah, you know what? I remember quite a bit about it. I mean, not only was it a national amateur event, the U.S. Amateur, the biggest amateur event in the world, and it was my first time kind of being to match play, and I don't even know if I played match play ever. I think maybe the only other time I did was like in this Cannon Cup junior tournament, and so maybe my second ever amateur really style type of golf, and I walked to the first tee that day. And I had actually played really great in my Sweet 16 round. I played against a guy from Indiana. His name's Randy Lean, who was, he and I were, probably two of the best Midwestern golfers kind of at that time. He and I, and maybe a Ryan Armour or somebody, but we were battling out. I shot like 7 under, played ridiculously good, and he shot like 4 under and played great. And I ended up just, I made a lot of putts and nosed him that day. And I remember thinking, man, okay, now I get to play Tiger, the best player in the world. And I just had my best round the day before. Sometimes it's really hard to follow that up. But I walked to the first tee, and my mom and my aunt and my 75-year-old grandmother were all with me. And they were all walking every hole with me. And that day we walk up, and there's 4 people deep all around the tee box and lining most of the first hole. And I had my own security guard, and I was thinking, oh man, how are my mom and my aunt, my grandma going to watch me hit one shot today because all these people. And fortunately, I talked to the security guy, and he got him on the inside of the rope, but just inside, so they could kind of see me. And I walked up to the first tee, and the USGA person handed me my scorecard and pin sheet and said, "So, sir, son, where's your mental coach and your swing instructor and your trainer?" Because of course Tiger had all 3 of those people with him. And I said, you know what? I said, see those 3 ladies right over there? I said, that's my mom, my aunt, and my grandma. I said, that's all I need. And she kind of chuckled and said, all right, well, good luck. And the very first hole, he rips a 2-iron down there, and I hit a 1-iron. And I remember kind of him looking at me like, who's this guy think he is hitting this 1-iron? Like he's got any business, hitting a 1-iron. And he still hit his 2-iron past me, which is not a surprise. But I got up and I had 175 yards the hole, and I was so jacked. I hit this 7-iron 15 yards over the green, like into where I thought would be jail. And I hit a pretty good pitch to like 12 feet, and I made the 12-footer for par on the first hole. And I don't even know how I could take the putter back, but I got it back and I made the putt. And I thought, okay, here we go. And so and I think that kind of made him think, okay, maybe this guy's not a complete joke. And and we went on, and the whole match kind of stemmed around this third hole. Oddly enough, we have the first hole. He hit it to 10 feet on the second hole, and I hit it to 20 feet. And I had my first putt 12 feet by. The greens were really fast. I hit my first putt 12 feet by. I made the 12-footer for par, and then he birdied the hole. So I go one down, and then on the third hole, I hit it just short of the green in two, and I chipped it up to a foot, and he gave me that. He had hit it over the green, and he chipped it to like 40 feet down the bottom of the green. And I'm thinking, all right, sweet. I can get this one back. We're all even through three, lots of golf to go. And he hit this 40-footer, and it was going 8 feet by, but it hit right in the middle of the cup, jumped straight up, came down. And that was kind of the hole that, because we played very, very close kind of the rest of the day. And I ended up losing 3 and 2, but I made 2 birdies and a bogey in 15 holes, 16 holes, and 16 holes, and really I would have beaten everybody else that was in the quarterfinals that day, except for Tiger Woods.
Yeah. And I guess it's pretty crazy to think about that being the summer of 1996. It was less than a year later that he was down at Augusta rewriting the record books.
Yeah.
So, he obviously took a route that's not very common, and, gaining superstar status right away in the PGA Tour. You and everybody else kind of has to grind it out on, what's now the Korn Ferry Tour. Part of this series, we've interviewed some of the more recent State Am champions, the likes of Nick Hardy, Patrick Flavin, who are just launching their professional golf careers and at those stages. When people who are at those stages of their careers maybe ask you for advice, how can I get my professional golf career going? What do you say to them?
Play, play as much as you can within reason. The hardest part about being a professional golfer, honestly, especially if you're on a major tour, whether it's a Korn Ferry, a PGA Tour, a European Tour, even a Latin American Tour and stuff like that. The hardest part a lot of times is taking time off, because one, most of the time you're young and you're ready to go and you just want to play and play and play. But honestly, that's the way you learn. The way you learn is to get out there and compete. And the only way you're going to figure out how to get it done is to put the peg in the ground and go and say, all right, I'm here. And it also makes you respect how to train and how to, manage your time and manage your energy and know your body and know, hey, okay, I'm playing good. I'm going to keep going. I'm not playing very well. I'm going to maybe shut it down for a little bit, or maybe I'm going to try to go about something in a different way. And those are all things that as a young pro, you kind of have to learn. And then as you get to be a more established pro and a more serious pro, then, those are things that you don't have to worry about quite as much.
Definitely. As you mentioned earlier, you've won a few PGA Tour events, 3 to be specific, most recently in 2017 at the Puerto Rico Open. Before that, it was 2013 since you had won. And I know in following the coverage at the time and going back and reading some of the articles before this, you really talked about how important of a victory that was for you. So can you just reflect upon that most recent win and how much it meant to you at the time and still does really at this stage in your career?
Yeah, a measure of how a person is or how their character or what is kind of how you can come back from a rough patch, right? And I was going through a serious rough patch. Like, I was playing bad, and I had lost my card, and I had battled to get some status back through the Korn Ferry finals and got my card back. And I wasn't playing necessarily great golf in 2000, and I guess I was 17, right? Yeah. And so, but I didn't ever quit. I didn't ever give up. I just kept plugging away. And oddly enough, I switched putters and I switched putting grips. And all of a sudden I was like, man, this doesn't feel too bad. And sure enough, I went down to Puerto Rico. I had my family there, which was nice. It was spring break for my kids. So I came down and we were just having kind of a nice family time. And I roll out, shoot a little 8 under the first day, and I was like, all right, well, this is what we're talking about, And then I played nice and solid the next 2 days, and then I came out on Sunday and I birdied the first five. I was like, all right, this is what I'm talking about. And then stumbled a little bit in the middle, and then I think I birdied 4 of my last 6 to close it out. And again, man, it's just when you struggle and how much time and energy you put in, and when you don't see results, golf's different than maybe a lot of other sports. A lot of other sports, if you put in extra effort and extra time and energy, you can see, or extra, if you try harder, you can see some results a little quicker. Where at golf, the harder you try, sometimes just the harder it gets. And to see all the hard work that I put in kind of come back and actually get, some reward out of it was just, you can't even describe the feeling of joy.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. And as we mentioned, that was your third tour victory. Your first came out at Pebble Beach at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am out there, an event that you play in regularly from the Pro-Am perspective alongside Bill Murray, of course, one of the most famous golf celebrities out there, and from the Chicagoland area. So what's your guys' relationship like as you've played together in this event over the years?
Yeah, well, Bill and we've become pretty good friends over the years. We chat once every couple months, maybe. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But he's obviously a busy man, and I've got a busy family and stuff going on. I just recently checked in on him, during this pandemic, and made sure he was doing okay. And he said he and all of his sons are hanging in there and doing well. And we honestly have a really good time together. We both haven't played our best golf in that tournament the last couple of years, and I still think we have some good showings left in us. We just both have to get back to doing what we normally do, and we'll be good. But he's become a good friend, and I'm appreciative of all the stuff that we've gotten to do together.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So one of your more recent initiatives that you've undertaken, you put your name on an AJGA event that's hosted every year at your home course at Pekin Country Club. What was that process like, and why is it important for you to give back to the game at that junior kind of grassroots level?
Yeah, no, it's huge. They came to me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" And I mean, my mouth hit the floor. I was like, "Oh my gosh, of course I would." It was I didn't get to play in that many AJGA events when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was 38 or 40 of them a year all across the country. And now there's, 100 or there's a lot. And, but, the fact that they were like, "Hey, we would like, your location in Central Illinois is a really great location that we haven't really gotten to explore and have a whole lot of stuff go on there. And we'd like to do that." And, Pekin Country Club has been super, super supportive, and the town of Pekin, it's kind of cool. Even this last year when I was there, people around town know what's going on. It's not just, the people out at the country club are like, "Oh yeah, we've got a tournament." It's like people in town know that the junior golfers are coming and that it's a tournament that I'm putting on. And it's nice. I've had my family come, and I like being there and spending time with the kids and getting to know some of the junior golfers, and try to, give them, tips here and there about what to think about, even when they're playing that golf course or when they're playing any golf courses. But yeah, it's a really big deal to me. And if you notice, there's a lot of PGA Tour players that are stepping up and lending their name to tournaments all over the country, because it's such a big part of how we got to where we are, that if, that's the least we could do. And I know that we're taking steps, God willing, with the coronavirus and the pandemic that's going on. But if we can host our event, we've got some cool things that are going to come that even take, in the third year, take this tournament to the next level and try to make it a bigger, more, prestigious event amongst the AJGA.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, being back in town for the event last year. How often are you able to make it back to Illinois and to Pekin in the midst of, what I'm sure is a very busy travel schedule?
Yeah, I two to three times a year, I come back. I I always try to, I have some really good friends that live in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. So I try to come back usually with my family in the summer when it's 95 here in Orlando and it's a lot nicer in Chicago. I'll try to come back. But usually around the 4th of July, which is usually around when my junior tournament is. So I'll kind of try to be around for a couple weeks there, which is also when the John Deere is. So we kind of try to schedule that time. And then, I'll come back maybe to visit the people at Pekin Insurance, who's been my biggest sponsor in my career and has been, supported me for the last several years. And so whenever I can come back to do something for them or visit with them, I try to do that as well.
Well, taking those trips in the summer is definitely the right decision. We've had snow the last couple of Aprils, DA. Look, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Obviously hope you and your family stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you out on a golf course in the not too distant future.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Casey.